There's the sun and the moon when the sky's looking blue. Light is catching your eye like it's meant to.
Hello, welcome to my channel for Evolved Humans. I am Ms. Day. So, this reading is really interesting because it's kind of like about balancing out. And the song that I heard right when I was getting ready, right when I was about to start, it was Gwen Stefani, that song, I Know We're Cool. It's like, after all that we've been through, I know we're cool. And I feel like this is a really crazy, this reading felt immediately like it was going to be about accountability and like just personal self accountability. Going forward, this is for someone who's like wanting to be more accountable for their own choices and the reactions because of everything you've gone through in like relationships and connections. And it's really interesting because as soon as I heard that song, it's like it makes me think that there's this big feeling in here that someone kind of needs to, or is actually going to actively embrace their ability to take control of their own circumstances, and also their ability to be at peace with running the show. It's weird because it's like it feels like a really large confidence type of thing, but it's not because of arrogance. It's more so that this reading is for someone who feels like certain that you know that you've had the right intention. Like you know that you do want to do the right thing. Also, I think a lot of you in here, so there are two different pieces at the same time where it's like some of you I feel like are almost so wounded by people who have been close to you and let you down that you almost like expect way less from people than you even really want to. Like it doesn't make you happy. It's not a serving type of outlook of others. And then I feel like there's also this other part in here where there's an avoidance of interacting or getting close with others, where it's like, but I think that some of you, the same people, are selective about who they have relationships with. It's like I just keep seeing someone who's really close to their friends' kids, and they're really close to their like nieces and nephews, or their co-workers' kids or something, and they just don't embark on like the super intimate things for themselves because they've just seen too much. Like that's the outlook. So this is an instant creative feeling also. I know there's creative in here. My first thought, like after I heard the song and I sort of thought about like connections, I thought someone in here like needs to create. And I feel like some of you have been at that point where you feel like you have like a writer's block moment with your creation, your creative style, whatever that is, like painting or even literally just drawing and creating like dialogue. I feel like the creative feeling is almost like blocked. There's also, throughout this timeline, for whoever this reading is for, it's like you kind of thought I think that you were surrounded by people. I just heard another song. This is a Reba McEntire song, actually. This is crazy. It's Sing a Song, Sweet Music Man, because I won't be there to hold your hand like I used to. And it's like you're still a powerful singer, or you're still a powerful man, but you keep surrounding yourself with people who demand so little of you. I feel like whoever this reading is for, too, it's like you experienced someone who just like wouldn't let go of certain connections that were like keeping them on kind of a negative spiral or cycle of their own, you know, in their own adult life. And I think that this is also a big part of whoever this is for. You don't like judgment. You don't like judgment of others. You don't like to assume this person is this way and that is their future. Like, you don't really like to take that kind of certainty into your hands. And I do think that there's someone in here too that's like even clumsy a little bit. I think that this is the same thing that I felt a few readings back, where it was like somebody was experiencing clumsiness when they were coming into an interaction, anticipating an interaction with someone that kind of makes certain alarms go off in your systems. So this is where, crazy, because I feel like you just had to accept that this person did make their decisions. I don't think it was only one person. I think for some of you, yeah, it's one big relationship, but for a few of you, I think that you kind of have been scoping out, like watching other people kind of like make weird choices for themselves just constantly in your life, all throughout your relationships. And that's the thing too, there's a huge feeling in here of someone who I think has been viewed in a weird way, or almost like you were arrogant, but it wasn't arrogance. It was, you had pure intentions maybe just before you had the know-how, just like so often we do, you know. That's such a human thing. I think that whoever this reading is for, there's a confidence in your own ability to like overcome. Like, you have a survivor mentality. I think that you endured a lot of things going on at once around you as you were growing up and developing. So I think that type of like chaos actually doesn't make you go crazy. It's more so something that you just kind of try to avoid, kind of in a avoid confrontation, which is why I think whoever you are, some of you, this is not all of you, but this is some of you, are very selective with who your relationships are with, like who you're willing to let see that softer side of you. That's crazy. That even makes me think of some random thing I saw online once about some dude saying like that tenderness is really important when you're making a male comfortable as they're going through development. That tenderness is really important to make sure that like that type of nourishment is allowed in that space. Crazy. I'm probably messing up the words. Another part of this reading that is really interesting is it's like you can go forward. You know, something weird. It makes me think of this moment that I had where I wondered if this was going to come back in, and it is. It's something like there's this silly moment in a movie from a Disney Channel movie a long time ago called Twitches, I think, and it's like a mother who adopted her daughter, and her daughter felt guilty for meeting her biological mom later in life. And the mother who had raised this child was like, you know what? Like, don't ever hold yourself back to protect me, because she was like, the thing about love is it's infinite. It has no limits. There is no end to how much you can produce of it. There's obviously a limit to like what you can do to show it, but to experience and just know it and act as a loving being towards someone, no matter what you've experienced with them, no matter even if you have to part ways. It's like that type of thing. Wow. And that brings me back to the accountability, where it's like you can protect yourself to a certain degree, so long as it doesn't become this action of almost like a negative intention. And that is not all of you. That's like some small bit in here where I feel like it's wounds making you feel that way too, where it makes us kind of like want to say something like, I'm seeing someone like making like messaging something and then deleting it, you know, never sending it, or like really struggling to do so right now. This is where the creative thing is a huge benefit. Some of you have used music in the past. Some of you, I feel like you could literally use childlike things, like going to a park, like doing silly things that make you feel free, like going to a merry-go-round, unless you're gonna, you know, throw up like I would. But like as a child, those things are really fun. So like things that make you feel like running in nature, that's something this even reminds me of, is like just running. Just the freedom of running as a child, like in a field, you know what I mean? Like just that freedom of running through the air and being all excited and not out of breath. Like that's crazy. So a part of this is like a solid, like you're rebuilding a new foundation as you're going forward. But I feel like this is more so, this huge part of this reading is for those of you who already have been doing that. Like you kind of know that you've been resetting your footsteps to be sort of more sturdy than the ones before. You know that you're stepping into a later stage of your own like adult development as your own person. Like it feels like a very deep soul decision, that there's a decision to be made here. Some of you I think have already made it. So here's that thing with that love being infinite. It's like another part of this reading when I started, it was weird because when I was thinking of that song, I was picturing like gods and goddesses. This is so weird. Gods and goddesses, where it's like maybe this one messed up, where you hear it more like a story that's something that's relatable, where it's like, okay, well this god had a problem with drinking too much alcohol and he got mixed up with the ladies. Like, what a terrible example, but I'm just saying that's what I was picturing. Where, and then there's this goddess over here who's like, ugh, this is what they do, you know what I mean? Almost like there are certain pathways where, oops, we wake up and it might feel like it's too late for that connection, but it's not too late to learn and to like change your perspective on that connection, even if the connection breaks or has to shift going forward. So this is where I think a lot of you too, there are so many times where I hear like the word karmic, and it's like a karmic relationship. It used to be something that was kind of triggering to me, and then I realized that I started getting triggered about it again the more that other people were kind of like that, where they were like worried about really stepping out of certain connections because they didn't want the judgment that came along with that. Like they didn't like the rhetoric, the stuff that was going on. Like when you say, okay, this is coming to an end, I'm doing this, people usually have a lot to say about like major life decisions. And when it's a super emotional one and it's something that you've had to go through a lot of large stepping stones, like you have carefully placed your footing, even though I don't think you all always did that. It may not have been in every single scenario, but it feels more so like going forward, you've made a solid decision already that you're going to step forward in a more evolved version of yourself. And the thing that with this whole like gods and goddesses thing, so weird, because it's like I keep remembering this scene from, I think that it was called Sin City, with like Bruce Willis and Jessica Alba and other people. It was very comic booky looking, I think, and visually, and there was this scene. I keep flashing back to this scene ever since that Gwen Stefani song, where it was like this head of some, I don't know, horrible female object situation, and then some dude who like came in and like killed people. I don't know. I don't remember the story. I just remember that these two people kind of loved each other, even though they were on two totally separate life paths, and neither of them were budging. Like, neither of them were separating themselves from that path in order to be together. So one of the things they kept saying, which I keep picturing or hearing in my head and seeing, is when they say always but never. Like, in a way that they would like kiss or love each other. It was like always but never. That's where I feel like this like gods and goddess thing is, because it's like no matter what, whoever you are, you're coming out of something feeling like you have exhausted, I think, all avenues that you feel comfortable with. That's something else in here. Like, there is a certain point where the guides all around you will not give you the answers, because we all have decisions to make. No one is meant to not get better. That's not a story that's just written. Because, like, everyone always has an opportunity to learn something, even from bad things and bad times, which a lot of you know that I'm doing this reading for. Because there were huge barriers around you before you even let emotions connect with people again. Anyway, so there's like this creative feeling where I feel like a lot of you need to recognize that your full self and these solid steps forward, it is all a movement of you. And whoever you've been connected to or are going to be connected to, they have their own movement as well. And what matters the most with this outlook is not about what other people are going to think about them, or even what you worry about them thinking you think of them. Isn't that crazy? But that's it. Like, this is so not about that. It's like, I feel like the huge message here is you need to be solidly standing on your own legs. Like, you need to be solid in the fact that even, I keep hearing that preacher thing, that thing that I heard a preacher say once where she said that it wasn't about, oh, what if, like, don't get lost in worry, where it's like, what if this happens, what if this happens, what if this happens? Don't get lost in that. Instead, it's like, shift the words to, even if this happens, this is what I'm going to do about that. This is what I'm still going to have, you know? Even if. I feel like a lot of you that are doing the creative stuff, and I know there's music, and I know that there's painting, and I know that there's dancing. It's whatever it is, and it's like some with words. Whatever it is that is your creative ability, I feel like a huge part of like your recent unknowing moments where you're like, what is the point? Those moments, I think that what they want you to recognize is it used to come easily because there were fewer layers in the way. And it's like sometimes you just have to kind of like strip away a few layers and then let it go, and then go at it again a few days later where you're like, I'm going to strip away a few layers again. And it's like, make your goal with that. I just keep okay, here's the craziness about the accountability thing. I feel like this sounds really harsh. The word accountability bothers people. It can feel triggering if you've had problems being accountable for things, or even if we still do, like all of us do with certain things. And it's, you know, like hydration versus coffee for me. Like, that's one of my worst things, is like knowing that I shouldn't be doing something that I know is bad for me and it's going to cause bad reactions, versus just doing the thing that I know is right. You know, super teeny tiny little things that are a moment of decision. I feel like in those creative moments, it's like they want you to see it as simply that, where you're just a developed person later on in life, where you've got multiple layers of things that have happened to you and multiple connections that kind of are the clouds in front of your own connection. Because when you're a kid, it's so easy to create when you feel like you're not going to be made fun of, you know, before everybody experiences those moments. It's like this is a huge part of this. I think that your lack of wanting judgment and all of that, it becomes this almost like a guilt weighing on you in there, or like a worry. Some of you really are worried about falling into old habits, and some of you are worried that like this block type thing is never going to feel fulfilling again. That creative juice isn't going to flow again the way that it used to, and it will. Like, you have to do the work to make that happen. And I feel like that's what they're saying in a large way to a lot of you, where it's like, if you're focusing on the connections out here, or like what they're going to take from what you're creating, that's not all of you. That is some of you. That's like one wave. If you're focusing on what's going to be received, it's different than focusing on what you're producing. Like, isn't that crazy? Because you have to know what result you want in order to like make the results happen or manifest a thing. But at the same time, it's like, it's creation. It's new. It's never happened before. So in order to know what you want received, you have to receive it first. It's like you have to find it first. Find the feeling where you're not bored with that part. You don't think that line was worth hardly or wasn't as important as this part. It's like, ooh, crazy. Because I think a lot of us okay, so a lot of the ways that people use affirmations now, sometimes being a perfectionist can be harmful. I know. It can be the block. Like, it can be the reason that you don't move. Just knowing that it will never be perfect. But then there's also this part of like some of you where I feel like you have this ability to perfect things, and that might literally be your block. Just like that, where it's like you're not actively going forward because you're afraid of the fact that like you're gonna have to fully commit. You have to fully commit. Like, don't just, that's what it is. There are so many people that have this worry or like this constant want for an answer to come in, and they're like, you have to do the creation process. You're still the new thing here. You are the extraordinary filter. Like, whatever comes through you is going to be in your, it just makes me think of snowflakes and a fingerprint. Like, that's what this creation stuff is. And I feel like your sense of self, your creative self, that's just as significant as your professional self and as your roles in your family or with the people that like you choose to be close to. Like, I think that that's something where instead of looking for like what other people, yeah, it's like an external receiving thing. And it's like so much about you creating the experience you want received. Like, what's yours? What is the base experience here that they're going to be able to take something from? Isn't that crazy? Okay, so back to the connections thing. I think some of you have gone through some pretty negative experiences before deciding to like kind of cut ties with certain areas. I think that those negative things and the frictional moments, even though they suck as they come up and they happen, I think that you knew with a new knowing now. Like, I think that there's just a new sense of confidence with whoever this reading is for. That is the whole thing, where there's a new level of confidence. I don't know if it's in like what you can handle or what you've already handled, but there's just something solid where you're like, I like to be in control of my own life. I like that I have some decisions to make, and I think I'm going to make some new ones. Like, it's very solid. And I feel like for some of you, there's a very large softening that needs to happen, and I think that can happen with letting other things in. Like, I just keep seeing someone who needs to put their own self into their environment around them. Like, they need to be able to see things that make them happy. That's why I have flowers. That's why I always have roses, because they make me happy. And like, even the smell, for whatever reason, when I have a migraine, that is one of the smells that like does not bother me. It's something I can smell, and it just kind of like puts me in my place where I'm, doing a reading. So anyway, there are so many ways that like this reading feels like it's for so many people, but I also feel like it just so often feels like it's 3 people I'm talking to, like, because it's in waves. And some of you too, I think that you have a confidence. Some of you, I think, want a confidence, and you're now confident in what you've learned. I think a lot of you, this is another part where it's like there are some of you who you have a confidence in your takeaway ability. Like when you do have faults and flaws and mess up, you take from that mistake and you carry on. That's another thing in even being a creative person. It fits right in because being a creative person, like you can hear something like, oh, I'm going to tweak that. Oh, I can tweak that. See, how weird is that? That like they're saying like that being a perfectionist, you might actually be triggering yourself with exactly what it is that you need to get yourself to full functioning capacity. It's very positive. It's very cool. And also my favorite, it's like that creative thing. It feels like such a fiery like stream in you. And I think that going forward, that confidence is almost like that fire being like a step. Like, okay, I know I'm doing this. I know I'm going to do this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, well now I'm going to step here. Like, let that confidence go in every move that you make. Because that confidence is the forward motion. Like, don't let yourself fall into worrying about the what ifs and the oh, about that, what about that? It's more like you change those words, like, even if, look at what I can do. I'm going to do this, like I'm going to solidly decide this. I don't think I'm comfortable there. I'm going to just shift my weekend nights to this area. Do you know what I mean? It's like those teeny little tweaky things. And also like interactions. If you're not 100% feeling like, I feel like some of you have interactions that are almost like pulling teeth. And sometimes that can feel positive when you're really in need of an interaction. But it's like, do you really like that feeling of pulling teeth when you're like just trying to have a conversation with someone? Very interesting. Okay. It feels like such a manifesting moment. It feels like such a moment of action, just in general, the collective like feeling and message. And so if you're interested in joining my membership, I also wanted to let you know, the reason I'm doing that is because I did personal training, which I stopped doing weeks before I started the YouTube channel, because I wanted to go into the energy reading on YouTube and stop doing one-on-one. I thought that I was done with that, and yet it's actually something I'm going to try to do in the collective way with the membership, where I can like kind of just help alleviate certain like neck pain and shoulder pain and hip pain and back pain, stuff like that. And also controlling your breathing and getting your consciousness to be moving throughout your entire body. Just the reason that is so important is because like this is literally the vehicle that you have to experience others' consciousness, like the consciousness, the collective consciousness. It's like you are a part of that, but you have to have control of where yours is at. So it's just a cool way to do that. And also I'm going to do things like show you how to clear your own home and things like that, if you're interested. And if not, I'll continue to do these readings. And please continue to let me know in the comments when they resonate with you. I do love that, and I do think it's super interesting just to know that there are so many ways that they affect different circumstances, but it's like this one wave of a message. So, subscribe to the channel if you do like the way that the readings hopefully help in some way also, and let me know in an email if you want to set up an appointment for a personal reading. Okay, have a good night. Bye.